Next up, we have Mike Follett, who is Managing Director of Lumen, and he's going to be talking about eye tracking in Facebook. 3 reasons your Facebook ads are crap, not beating around the bush here, and 3 ways to make them better. So over to you, Mike.
Hello everyone, my name is Mike, I'm the Managing Director of Lumen. It was really interesting hearing about Jerry and talking about the quality of media. I'm going to be back here tomorrow to talk about exactly the same thing. But today I'm just talking about Facebook ads. For those of you who don't know us, we're Lumen, we're an eye tracking company. We've got a technology that's turned this little camera here or this camera here into an accurate eye tracking camera, and that allows you to work out the reality of attention to ads, in feed and in the real world. Because this has led us to make sort of 3 big learnings from our recent studies that we've done that I thought to share with you about Facebook advertising. Lots of Facebook advertising is done wrong because people forget that Facebook ads are always seen in feed, they're always seen at speed, and people don't tend to read. And so that's what I was going to talk about today. So the first mistake that people make when they make Facebook ads is that they're developing ads in isolation, but these ads are always seen in context. Here is the reality. You spend all this time making these ads. Here's the reality of how people actually navigate Facebook on their phones. They scroll very quickly, they glance at things, they glance backwards and forwards, but as you can see, they're not spending a great deal of time on the ads. And we have to remember that you have to spend, when you're making ads, you have to remember that these ads have to fight for attention within a busy context. And that, just remembering that should be enough to get people to change what they're doing. The second thing is that you put, people put a lot of TV ads onto Facebook. This is probably a mistake because the average view time, as you saw there, but from the studies that we've done, the average view time is about 1.7 seconds. That is not the 15 seconds or 30 seconds that you might have bought with your ad. It's actually a fraction of that. And so you have to remember that what Facebook is it's not like TV. It's much closer to out of home. And then that leads us on to the third thing that people get wrong. People think that people like reading stuff on Facebook, and this is not the case. Here is quite a successful ad from L'Oreal. It's very successful. It gets much more time, 3.5 seconds than average. It's just that no one seems to have read anything. And similarly here with 3, you can bring the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Here, people have gone trying to make you read, like almost like karaoke style. But have they done that? Have they bollocks? People don't really like reading. It's quite hard work. And so frequently they don't do it, especially when they're scrolling along. So what does this mean for advertisers? Well, because everything is in feed, remember that your ads have to compete for attention. Don't just throw anything out there. Make sure it's actually worth looking at. Make sure that it's not a TV ad. Make sure this is not a video platform. It's like digital out of home. And make sure that it's visual, because that is far more effective than reading stuff. So to conclude, Facebook ads do work. It's just that they probably don't work in the way that we think they work. In actual fact, things are far more far simpler in some senses and more complicated than others. So that's my bit.
Thank you, Mike. Can you hear me okay?
I can indeed.
Great. Well, I'm delighted that we managed to put you and Jerry next to each other, not only because you're going to talk about the same topic, but you also cosmetically look perfect next to each other as well. So that was great curation on the behalf of Dan and Ian. So really interesting.
But like I say, his conscious network is something we're very. But that's tomorrow's talk. Today was all about the creative. Tomorrow is about the media. But we're very keen on what Jerry does.
Great. So some really killer statistics there in terms of actual attention and where people are spending their time based on real information as opposed to kind of claimed attention. What do you see actually happening in the creative teams, the creative environments? Is there enough attention focused on this type of data? I see a lot of media teams being interested in this, but often I talk to brands and they worry that their creative teams just want to create another TV ad and they need 20, 30 seconds to do that, rather than accepting that actually the audience doesn't have that amount of attention. So what do you see? Is that fair?
I think that is fair. There is a genuine worry about this, and clients should be worried about it. The trick is that most digital agencies, most ad agencies are very good at making posters. There's a long and storied tradition of making posters. They are brilliant at it. And they're also good at making TV ads. But when it comes to Facebook, you should bring out the poster boys rather than the TV girls to make your ads. So it shouldn't be that hard. Most agencies, digital and otherwise, are really good at doing simple, clever, elegant designs.
Okay.
That's where you should be spending your money.
Yeah, and I think it requires us to think slightly differently about the measurement. I remember, I think it was actually Facebook that brought this study out that showed that clickers are very rarely correlated with converters. The people that are clickiest are often the most expensive to acquire. So attention and exposure does have a benefit, yet the whole digital industry has been obsessed with click-through rate and how cheaply can I get someone to go through from a click. So what would you say to people that still think like that?
Well, who on earth clicks on ads? I mean, once you get past, the only people I've noticed who clicks on ads are 6-year-olds who are given their parents iPads. They're pretty much the only people who do it. So no, it's a ridiculous thing to do. What's interesting is that obviously advertising, works on TV and it works on print and things, and there's no click there. And it probably works in the same way on Facebook and in all digital media. Clicks aren't, whereas it's where attention that matters. But what's interesting as well for me is that we have noticed that an awful lot of the Facebook ads that we test get quite a lot of attention without being technically viewable.
Right.
Often we find that 80%, 80% of your ads are viewable, but only 60% are viewed. With Facebook, sometimes you have 7% of these things that are technically viewable, but 70% of them that are looked at, obviously for less than 2 seconds, which is the cutoff point for viewability. But it's important to remember that the Facebook ads are working, but they're working in a very short amount of time, and that may not be captured by the viewability metrics.
So last question then, does that mean you need more frequency?
Pardon me?
Does that mean you need more frequency if it's a very short amount of attention on what? 2 seconds is probably only a fraction of the whole ad, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think, well, like I say, I think you should think about these things as posters. And posters work by being fairly high frequency, but also by being very, very simple. They lodge a simple visual message in your mind. That's how we need to think about all online ads, and especially on Facebook.
I like the frequency of your message. Facebook is more like posters than television. Thank you very much, Mike.